All right. Welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. It is Wednesday, the 16th day, already more than halfway through the month of July. And yeah, my wife was talking about this. Just amazing how time just runs away from us. It's not something you got to feel good about, I suppose, but we're fortunate. So many people aren't in this sad world we live in. And that's kind of what the focus of this program is the toughest things we're going through, the toughest challenges we face, and who are the people that need our help the most. We talk about that right here on Halitics, and we hopefully come up with some answers, some solutions to these really terrible challenges that we face. Love the comments. Got a great comment there from Ken. That's an abbreviation. It's a longer name there on the YouTube channel, the YouTube feed from yesterday's program, I think it was. So thank you so much. And if you want to read my long-winded response, feel free. This is going to be another one of those programs where I definitely go after Democrats, and I have been one of the strongest supporters, I think, out there, really. I mean, not just, certainly among people I know, but in the YouTube space, I've been very, very strongly supportive of Zohran Mamdani. He's disappointed me. I talked about this yesterday. He's disappointed me, and even more so when I read some stories after the program yesterday. We're going to get into them. Is it enough for me to say don't vote for him? No, it isn't. But it is enough for me to say be wary. Buyer beware. He is not clearly the change agent that we had hoped that he presented himself, I believe, as during his campaign. And I think also we really have to recognize that his election to be the Democratic nominee really was helped very, very significantly, obviously. I mean, this isn't news, right? But I mean, to take too much out of this victory, I think would be a mistake if you're a progressive or if you're a leftist like I have been called, instead of you're not really a progressive, Hal, you're even further to the left, you're a leftist. Okay, whatever. You got to realize he was up against a real, terrible slate. I mean, at least with respect to the front runner, right? Cuomo was just clearly and rightfully unacceptable. So that gave him an opening that he probably wouldn't have had. Brand Lander I like, but he was kind of a milquetoast, and really the other options, just nobody stood out. So he had that option going for him. When you look at what happened yesterday in Arizona's special election race we featured yesterday, I think I discussed, or certainly on Monday, and I did mention yesterday, the insurgent, youthful candidate Deja Fox seemed to be number 2 with a bullet. Just a few weeks ago, it pulled within 8 points of Adalita Grijalva, the establishment choice, and she faded badly in the stretch, running against a candidate, Grijalva, who had the support of the Arizona establishment, complete support, full-throated support, even more so than Cuomo. People were a little reluctant to get their hands dirty, even on the Democratic right, Democratic corporate center, meaning the New York Times. They did grudgingly urge you to put him down on your ballot, but they didn't, issue a full-throated endorsement. Grijalva was embraced by the Democratic elites in Arizona, both left, right, and center, in terms of Arizona. And let's be honest, she thumped Deja Fox, who did run as a more progressive candidate. So that, I think the takeaway for me is Mamdani's win in New York. As some would say, well, it's New York, it's not Arizona. I would say he was running against Cuomo. I mean, that's my biggest takeaway. He won big, and he did win big because of who he was running against. Deja Fox, in many ways, not as compelling a candidate as Mamdani, but in other ways, an attractive and appealing Democratic insurgent challenger, was just completely overmatched against a more palatable, clearly, and somewhat more, progressive Adalita Grijalva. So, every race is unique, but you can still take away lessons from it. And I think one of the big takeaways I've I have for Mamdani, beyond the good ones, which is, yes, you can run as at least an anti-Zionist, or you can run as the pro-peace in the Middle East candidate. You don't have to be tied to Israel to win in New York City, and that's really, really good. You can be in favor of some socialist solutions and win. Those are really important takeaways, but it's also important to realize that a candidate with those positions can win, but they did win against a wholly corrupt serial sexual harasser, Andrew Cuomo. So take everything with a grain of salt. The situation in Gaza remains or continues to be absolutely horrific. We're going to revisit a story we talked about yesterday involving the brutal beating to death of an American man on the West Bank in Palestine. We'll talk about that in a moment, as well as the death itself, the response of media, and the response of the Trump administration, at least one member. Not what you might have thought. But first, Gaza, the death toll there nears 58,600. Absolutely horrible. There's no way to spin it except this is a Holocaust. It's a genocide. And, people who have argued and said it's not a genocide, I've seen them on social media. I'd really like you to come clean. Just say, yeah. And I think the reason a lot of people were loath to acknowledge it was a genocide is because it's Israel. They feel a certain, even if they're not Jewish, well, look, we're Christian. We did such awful things to the Jews for so many decades and centuries and even over 1,000 years. We were killing Jews because they were Jewish. So we've got to stand with that community, even when it is engaging in the kinds of behaviors that we engage in, that we now deplore. 58,573 Palestinians is the latest number reported. This is, again, our Turkish news agency, Anadolu Ajansi. I do rely on them more than any other because they make it really easy for me, quite simply. They have their daily report. They come up, they have the new Palestinian ministries count, and they also do it every day. So it makes it easy. 94 more dead by Israel. I was told, by the way, I want to mention this by Ken, that I should try to personalize the stories and not, just make it about the death count. And so I will try to do that a little more. I get that. There's just so much to talk about. And I feel the absolute obligation to give you the specifics with respect to what we are doing. But yes, every life there, that's a human being. They have a story. They have a family. There's someone who loved them. There's someone or many people who are lamenting their deaths, and they will not forget. They will not forget what Israel and the United States and the world is doing to Palestine, the terrible crime against humanity that continues. Total number killed while seeking aid. So I haven't talked about this, but as much. But, the argument that I've heard is, hey, Israel's giving out aid. They've got this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and they're out there giving out aid. It's a lie. They're doing the bare minimum. They use this GHF as an excuse to push UNRWA out as much as they possibly could. United Nations Relief Works Agency, which actually was doing as good a job as could be done under the terrible circumstances that Israel had presented. But now this Gaza Relief Agency is doing health, foundation is just absolutely a cover, a smokescreen for more killing, more murders by Israel. They herd the Palestinian people together. Since May 27th, a little over a month, they've killed 851 Palestinians seeking aid, right? These are people who are starving to death. And that's an opportunity for Israel to shoot them in cold blood. It's every day a new tragedy, new horrors by Israel. Just give the numbers real quick because I didn't give this number out earlier, but The 58,573 since the Hamas attack and the immediate reprisal by Israel, violent, completely disproportionate, not designed to protect Israel, not designed to capture those responsible for those involved in the attack on October 7, but just a orgy of violence, an orgy of killing, of torture, of rape. That's what we're seeing right now. That's what the world is seeing. The United States is supporting it since March 18th, Trump and Netanyahu. The number just keeps rising. Think about that, 7,750 Gazans in, a little over, almost 4 months, 200 a month, 2,000 a month, 2,000 a month now. That's where we are. That's what's happening in our world. That's what Israel's doing. If you have a comment on this, you want to join me, you want to talk about your feelings, how this is, makes it harder to feel proud to be an American. I mean, I don't know that I've ever felt particularly proud to be an American, but I'm especially unproud now. Sometimes I am proud when I think about what happened in response to the Nazis, World War II. I think, yeah, we did some good things in the past. We had some, when we defeated, and I wasn't alive I was alive, but I certainly don't remember it. We passed laws to stop end Jim Crow. There have been some real humanitarian victories, humane aspects of the American experience, some real decency in there. But, this is obviously the complete opposite of that. And I made the point, hey, look, the ancient Athenians, look, they had great culture, great art. There was a democracy of a sort. If you were a propertied male, you could vote. You could decide the direction of the state. And when they got involved in a war with Sparta, they lost their humanity as well and made violent reprisals against even their allies if they weren't strongly supportive enough. So this is humanity. This is what we do. We have our good side, the beauty, the generosity, the willingness to learn, to grow, and then the flip side of that, the vengefulness, the resentfulness, the jealousy, the greed, the tribalism. It's all on display. I've been hoping that Zohran Mamdani could be an antidote to some of that. I'm less hopeful today. And that's a disappointment as well. That's something I feel bad about. I really do. Let's go to the Grand Canyon State for now. Again, 240-242-5646. Want to make sure. Let me just confirm. Yeah, I'm out there. I'm going out there. I'm broadcasting. That's what we want to make sure, just to confirm everything. And I see Jay. The answer is no. The media was relentlessly shoving this question down his throat at every turn. So I guess Jay is saying, no, Mamdani is not already betraying us. Yeah, I hope you're right, Jay. I hope you're right. I'm not as confident. So we'll go first to the Grand Canyon State. I trumpeted yesterday my support. No, was it yesterday? It was yesterday, but it was more so Monday. Jose Malvito was the right choice in Arizona 7 in the special election to replace a true progressive, one of the few, Raul Grijalva. Malvito obviously coming up very, very short. Unsurprisingly, he had done terribly in the polling. Daniel Hernandez coming in third. There was a thought in my mind, maybe he would draw from Adelita Grijalva to the point where Deja Fox could sneak in. Obviously, that did not happen, not even close. Grijalva nearly 3 times as many votes as number 2, Fox, and well over the 50% margin, absolutely thumping. Fox, a 25-year-old social media influencer, social media influencer. I don't know what the term is. She's an influencer. She worked for and this is obviously to her great discredit, she worked for Kamala. She spoke at the DNC in support of Kamala, as did, of course, AOC. One thing I'll say for Fox is she's 24, I guess, at the time. It's a heady stuff, right? You're speaking at the Democratic National Convention. I mean, that's a big deal. I get it. You're 24. You've got to be psyched about it. I certainly can't say that I, at her age or even at my age, would turn down an opportunity to speak. Although at my age now, I don't think I would have spoken in support of a Kamala Harris. But at her age, when I was 24, I was 24 in 87. I was 25 in 88. Would I have spoken for a Dukakis? Probably. I would have spoken for a Clinton. And we've all seen how he turned out. I mentioned that I think that, there's a lot of ways you can look at the Arizona race and contrast it to New York. You could say Arizona's less progressive than New York City. That's why Grijalva, the establishment candidate, beat the insurgent, unlike in New York, where the establishment candidate, Cuomo, lost. I think of it differently. Cuomo was a very, very toxic candidate for good reason, for understandable reasons. Grijalva actually more progressive by a decent margin than Cuomo, with a very popular name and great name recognition. So this should come as no surprise. I did look at the polling beforehand, and obviously the polls can be misleading, can be wrong. And in this case, the one that said that Fox was closing in was clearly wrong. I discussed this story yesterday, by the way, from Ari. Several news sources are now attributing at food aid stations in Gaza there are stampedes that they're blaming on Hamas. Yeah, I believe it. The media will look for any opportunity to exonerate, to excuse Israel, to come up with some explanation that isn't Israel is the genocidal state, Israel is the persecutor, the oppressor that is creating violence. So they'll jump at the opportunity to attribute any situation, no matter how horrific, they'll jump at the opportunity to attribute it to some other organization, some other group, some other nation, some other people than the Israelis. At this point, I will say NBC News gets a little bit, we will get to Mamdani in detail. I promise you, I will get into why. Did he betray us? No. I think he made a bad calculation. I disagree with what he did. I understand why he did it. Maybe he's playing three-dimensional chess and I'm playing checkers. It's certainly possible. But there's going to be always a price to pay. There's always a cost when you go meet with the devil. And that is exactly what Mamdani did. In fact, he didn't just meet with the devil. He sought that meeting with the devil. We'll talk about that in a bit. If you want to discuss it with me, I'd love to hear from you. 240-242-5646. I give NBC News credit for the way it covered this story. I mentioned yesterday when Arlen was on, an American of Palestinian descent, born in Florida, was brutally beaten and killed by illegal Israeli. You want to talk about illegal people, right? Like Trump's always calling people who come to this country without documentation, he calls them illegals. The real illegals are the settlers, in quotes, the land stealers, the squatters from Israel who, under cover of the Israeli military, steal land from Palestinians. Illegal settlements, illegals. That's who those Israeli settlers are. They beat to death an American who tried to protect his family from those illegal settlers. This happened on Friday. And I want to just first of all give NBC News credit for this headline. There's no beating around the bush. There's no, kind of equivocation or trying to blame, trying to say, well, the American was allegedly beaten to death or under provocation or something of that nature. No, just very, very simple. American beaten to death by Israeli settlers in the West Bank. Now, you could have used, if I were the the headline writer, I might have considered Israeli settlers beat American or American and Palestinian descent or something of that nature. But this is fine. In fact, it's probably better than anything else I could come up with because you are centering the victim. So well done, NBC News. Excellent headline. And excellent, by the way, a subheadline. Council on Arab-American Islamic Relations calls on Trump to hold Israel accountable. So well done for the killing of U.S. citizen. And they make it clear that it's a U.S. citizen. So give him his name. He's named right there. So he's given his identity. That is a good headline. I cannot question it. If you think there's something wrong with that headline, let me know. I'd like to hear what's wrong with it. Let's compare that with a really, really, really bad headline of the same exact event by at the same time frame. The only thing I'll say that the New York Times does is at least they identify that there were two victims. The one by NBC only says one American beaten to death. Now, I'm okay with the fact that they only said the American, because part of that story is that it's an American. So one American. Here's what the New York Times gets it completely wrong. Two Palestinians are killed, not by Israeli settlers. They're killed in a West Bank clash with Israeli settlers. So they just were killed. It was a clash. And then look at the subheadline. In the NBC News subheadline, they flat out say, CARE says to Trump, you got to do something about this. What does the New York Times say? Well, the report, first of all, you got to be skeptical because it might not have even happened the way we don't know what happened, but Palestinian authorities are saying it. They say Israeli settlers beat and killed a Palestinian American man. And then Israel makes an excuse. Well, maybe it's because the violence began because those Palestinians, those mean old Palestinians, they threw stones. And who did they throw stones at? Not settlers, not illegals, not land thieves, but civilians. So look at how the New York Times does everything in its considerable power to cape for the Israeli thugs who beat to death an American. And there's just zero excuse. This is an America. You want to be, we'd like you to believe, we like our newspapers, if you're going to have some chauvinism, at least have a pro-America chauvinism, right? Where you're biased for the American who's the victim. Obviously, the New York Times editorial staff didn't get that memo. Their memo is everything is Palestine's fault. Israel is never to blame. You always have to make excuses for Israel under any circumstance, every circumstance. You think the fact that there's a lot of Zionist billionaires in New York City, that they advertise in New York Times, they buy ad space in New York Times, they rub elbows with the top managers at the New York Times. You think maybe that's part of why the New York Times is such a biased, dishonest newspaper? I think so. I would say so. Yes, that would be my explanation. And then we'll continue to just what a piece of crap the Times is in reporting this story. I will get to Mamdani, I promise, but I wanted to focus on this because it really, really irritates me. Violence has soared in the West Bank since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. So it's because Hamas attacked Israel. It's this war. It's not even a war. It's not a war. It's a slaughter. It's a genocide. And they just present it like, oh, it soared because of this war. Not because Israel is just killing, Palestinians willy-nilly, but also because the settlers keep moving in, more and more and more of them. And what those settlers, they just live alongside the Palestinians. That's how the New York Times reports it. It's absolutely despicable. It's disgusting. Continuing, I'm going to just keep showing you because this article just reflects the culture of dishonesty, the culture of Israel supremacy that permeates the New York Times. So, all right, the UN, we can't even trust them, is, I guess, the implication there, says that 850 Palestinians and only 40, they don't say 40, have been killed since the Hamas-led, look at how they have to throw that in there, the Hamas-led attack, which ignited the Gaza war. Actually, that didn't ignite it. What ignited it was Israel used that as a pretext to start killing Palestinians in the tens of, perhaps hundreds of thousands of people. And the 850 Palestinians mostly killed during crackdowns on militants. Wow. You mean people who are pissed off that the land is being stolen from them? Is that why they're militant? Because they're protesting? Because they're protecting their families, their land that's been in their families for generations? Quite extraordinary. Just, it's so completely dishonest. This goes to, I remember talking about that. Should you quit the New York Times? I kind of say, yeah, you should. How does this, let's continue with this, because it's just an extraordinary abrogation of all journalistic ethics, the way this is reported. So completely dishonest. Friday's killings followed weeks of tensions between settlers. Yeah, because the settlers keep stealing more and more Palestinian land. They even ensconced themselves, the Israelis, on hilltops. Yeah, they stole the hilltops on land claimed. They say it's claimed. It is their friggin' land. This is the West Bank. This is Palestinian land. It's not claimed by them. It is theirs. It's incredible how this paper manufactures consent, right, for what Israel is doing. And I want to compare that. So you read that, and none of it, the whole article, I went through it. At no point do they tell you that the settlements are illegal. At no point do they tell you that the violence is due to the Israeli settlers. Instead, remember how they said it was because of crackdowns on militants. And compare that again. This is how bad the New York Times is. NBC News, hardly a journalistic standard, right? The standard of fine journalism. This is not the Edward R. Murrow ABC News, if we want to use him as some kind of the ideal, or the Walter Cronkite. This is today's NBC, the network that I guess used to employ Rachel Maddow. Now I think they've spun off MSNBC. I don't know if they still own it. I don't know. NBC, hardly some great journalistic enterprise, but they completely humiliate the New York Times in terms of the quality of their coverage of this crime by Israeli settlers and the Israeli military. So here's what NBC writes. Hundreds of thousands of Israeli settlers live in developments built that are widely considered illegal. Now, I would have just said are illegal, but I'm okay with that. At least they tell you those settlements are considered illegal. Now, they do, and I think wrongly so. This, the point here is not to say NBC is so great. It's that they're so much better than the New York Times. Since October, when Hamas attacked southern Israel, sparking the war, yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, accurate enough. Violence perpetrated by settlers in the West Bank. They're not mincing words. It's the Israelis who are causing the violence. It's perpetrated by them, and it's aided and abetted by Israeli security forces. NBC is getting it. The New York Times completely covers this up. And this is the article that came, this followed on the killing of Saf Musalet. This is the same, the exact same story by NBC compared to the exact same timeline story by New York Times. So what is NBC telling you? This is what the settlers do. You didn't hear any of this in the New York. You didn't read any of this in Times. Settler attacks include raids on villages, arson, targeting homes and farmland, and physical assaults that regularly turn deadly. So clearly, you get a much fuller, a much more complete, and an accurate, relatively accurate depiction of Israel's crimes, its settlers' crimes. The Jewish settlers' crimes are fairly complete, to a pretty significant degree, completely described in NBC News, by NBC News, nothing in NYT. I say that not to say, well, because I've talked about this, and I asked Peter B. Collins, well, should we just cancel New York Times? I don't know. New York Times does cover a lot of stories. They get some things right. Their editorial pages become worse and worse over time. Their treatment, their coverage of Mamdani was remarkably dishonest. They have manufactured consent for the Israel genocide. All that said, as long as you read it, understanding that the Times is no less than any other a propaganda outfit, then I guess you stick with it. I guess why not? I haven't canceled. I mean, full disclosure, I haven't canceled. We talked yesterday, or was it? It was yesterday, I believe, with Arlen about the killing of Saf Moussalet and how his family was seeking some acknowledgement and gotten like none. Remember the congresswoman from his district in Tampa area, Florida, Kathy Castor, a Democrat, did decry the killing, but didn't identify who did it. She just said, oh, it's really sad, it's really bad. Here's what Huckabee said. Who could have seen this one coming? Staunch Zionist Huckabee. Huckabee, who said there's no such thing as Palestine. He actually said it. There's no such thing as Palestine. Here's what Huckabee says. I've asked Israel to aggressively investigate the murder, not mincing words. He doesn't say the death. He doesn't try to pretend, well, maybe it was this. Or he's doing it. He's better than the New York Times here, right? He calls it what it is, a murder. Investigate the murder of Saf Moussalet, an American citizen visiting family who was beaten to death. There's no mincing words from Huckabee there. There must be accountability for this criminal and terrorist act. And then Huckabee does what the NBC News did and what the New York Times did not do. It humanizes Saf Moussalet. Huckabee, he was only 20 years old. So again, this is how bad your New York Times is. Mike Huckabee shames them with a more honest take, with a less propagandistic response. That's how bad your New York Times is. That's what a piece of garbage the New York Times is. Huckabee is better than the Times. Now, I do, credit where it's due. Huckabee did the right thing, says the right thing, presents correctly here. I don't think it's going to do anything. There's no way Israel's going to ignore this. There may be some behind closed doors, finger pointing at Huckabee and tisking and telling Trump, you got to get that guy under control. Or Trump might even say something to Bibi. Well, let's give us a martyr to, give us someone to a fall guy, right? That's the term I'm looking for. Give us a fall guy for this. Maybe. But really, in the end, this is all going to be forgotten, swept under the carpet. Nothing's going to change. All right, we're going to get, I promise you, we are going to go to Mamdani. I just wanted to say a couple of other quick points. Well, just let me show you this one other point. This is where I thought NBC News kind of gets it. I mean, I was just going through all this, how good NBC News is and how they really covered the killing of Moussalet, the murder by Israeli settlers, the lynching by Israeli settlers accurately. I'm not sure I totally agree with this headline. I guess it's okay. Trump admin calls on Israel, and then they miss there should be a preposition to investigate, but they don't. Trump administration calls on Israel to investigate terrorist killing of American in the West Bank. It was one member. I guess he's considered part of the Trump admin. For me, it's the Trump administration if it's a cabinet member. He is not a cabinet member. If it had been Trump who said it, if it had been Marco Rubio, if it had been J.D. Vance, then I'd be more inclined to say, yeah, that's accurate. For Huckabee alone to tweet out or X out whatever, Israel must investigate, I'm not quite giving credit to the Trump admin for that, the way NBC News does. So this is a really disappointing turn of events, in my opinion. Mamdani says he will discourage the term globalize the Intifada. I don't like that. There's absolutely nothing wrong. The term globalize the Intifada is an important term. It's a term that we should be using. We should be saying globalize the Intifada. Israel is an out of control, murderous state. The only way to stop it, besides U.S. action, which obviously has been completely absent, except in support of Israel's murders, the only possible response that might be impactful beyond that of the U.S. president is a global uprising. Intifada means uprising. Intifada means response. That's what we need. And that's why Mamdani got a lot of pushback, a lot of heat. One of his supporters did use the term. I think I used it also in my thumbnail. I did use it. I showed you the tweet by that supporter, among others. He got a lot of pushback because Wall Street elites, Zionists in charge, making the decisions, they're afraid of a global intifada. It would take some of their power. It could conceivably take away some of their power, some of their control. And they don't like that. They don't want that. Of course. Why would they? They want to be calling all the shots. So they don't want poor, struggling, working class people, victims, to unite against them. That's why they hate the term globalize the Intifada. And
can you hear me?
What we need, yeah, I got you, caller. I'll get to you in just a moment. I don't know, did I have you on mute? I thought there we go. Yeah, I'll get to you in just a sec, caller, I promise. So they're scared of the term. And that's the exact reason Mamdani should use it. Because it's effective. Because it scares elites. It scares the billionaire class. What Mamdani has to understand, I'm sure he does, but he wants to win, is that the two sides are Wall Street versus everybody else. The financial and industrial elites, the corporate owners and their hangers-on, their political lackeys, it's them versus everybody else. To the extent you ever give in to them, to the masters of the universe, so-called, and can include the tech bros in there too, when you give in to them, you are hurting the cause that hopefully we believe in. Let's go to the caller. What's up? Who do I have? Ari?
Sorry. Hi, Al. It's Ari.
Go, man. Go.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say I may take a little issue on this one because I think, in my opinion, of course, Intifada it signals something negative in the American populace, let's say. I don't know about New York. If you compare demographics, maybe some areas get it, some don't. Years ago, remember the word was used about schools used by it's an Arabic word for schools. It happened in New York. I forget the name of the woman that was taking up issue with that. And madrasa, that was the word, madrasa. It just means school in Arabic. I'm not a fluent speaker. I speak a few words. I used to live in the Middle East. So they took issue, they kind of attacked it. I know those were the days different than now, but, so I think Intifada might be a little premature, maybe working up to it rather than saying, well, I'm going to insist on this word. How about global support for Palestine? That's already happening anyway. Use that as a starting point and then work up eventually. If you want to use the word Intifada, well, I don't think America is ready for it.
I hear what you're saying, Ari. Yeah, this will be one of those areas where I think ultimately we don't see eye to eye, which is rare. And I think we both want the same place. Of course, we want we want the Middle East, we want Israel, Palestine to be free. We want Palestine to be free from the river to the sea. The question is, how do we get there? I get the arguments. I'll let you get back on. I want to read. I got some comments from people who I don't always hear from, including an elected, who wrote, is anywhere in your platform in the last several elections employ the phrase globalize the Intifada? This is a Maryland elected who write that. If not, then who gives a crap? He uses a different word. Bob Villan is discouraging his fans from chanting death to the IDF. That doesn't mean he's sold out. Well, I didn't say exactly that I think Mamdani sold out, but I do think it's a warning signal. I think death to the IDF is a little more violent. I don't really have a problem with it, but I think it's a more violent expression for sure than globalize the Intifada. Words mean what they mean. The reason I think, Ari, that we have such a pushback against the expression globalize the Intifada is because it really is calling for a worldwide revolt against the 1% or the 0.1%, the elites who are pulling all the strings. It's a really effective term. And I don't believe it's limited to just freeing or liberating Palestine. I think it goes beyond that. I think it goes beyond to an entire world where we are all fighting together for a place where we all have enough and no one has too much. So I think by saying I'm not going to use that term, I'm going to discourage others. What you're saying is I'm going to discourage people from fighting for a better world.
Yeah, and Hal, what I was going to say, I think there's a common ground here with what you're saying, I think, and what I'm resisting, the word Intifada. That, maybe that's, I don't know how he said it. I haven't seen the speech. Maybe you have a clip of it, or maybe there's an article.
Well, you know what? I'm going to interrupt you here. I'll let you get back. I know you get criticized for interrupting. That's a great point you just made. Yeah. We don't have the audio. Mm-hmm. This was said behind closed doors at a private meeting with New York City financial elites and business, business leaders. So we don't really know exactly what was said. We only have a few comments. And I have a huge problem with Mamdani meeting at a behind closed doors event with these people because they're bad people. I don't know what he said to them. I want to know.
All right. And Hal, the last thing I'm going to say is that's right. And how he says it, and maybe educate people. And he's really a great orator. I've watched him. He has skills I can learn. A lot of people can learn from this man. He's very good. He's very astute, I think. How he can educate the public and say, by the way, guys, this word just means this. It doesn't sound. It sounds like it's not a terrorist word. It's not somebody wearing a mask trying to kill you with a machine gun. It's just a word that means this. Just like madrasa means a school. It's not a special school to raise people for the Al-Qaeda. It could be. It's just a word for school. You can make anything out of a school or any tool. You can make it a good thing. You can make it a bad thing. So thanks for what you're doing, Hal.
Thank you very much, Ari. Yeah, I will say this. I understand. Let me put it this way. He wants to win. It may be that by saying that he, by giving an inch, right? By giving an inch on this one sort of stupid, right? It's really, this is what you're worried about? Is one of his supporters said globalize the Intifada and he didn't condemn it? This is your biggest concern? It isn't their biggest concern. What it is a little lever. It's a lever that the anti-Mamdani billionaire class that doesn't want public grocery stores, that doesn't want free public transit, that doesn't, and it's not because they even care about those things. What they're really afraid of is that truly progressive governance will work. They don't like his call for higher taxes. That I can guarantee you they don't like. And what they're afraid of, yes, is progressive governance will work and will take away some of their power. That's their fear. That's it. So they use this purported nonsensical claim that he's anti-Semitic because they feel like that is going to be an effect. It's you throw everything against the wall and you see what sticks. There are a lot of Jews in New York. There are a lot of liberal Jews, but they're afraid. They were raised on the notion that, the Nazis could be coming back at any time. You should always be worried. You always have to stay vigilant. You always have to stay woke to the possibility that they're going to build another Auschwitz. And so, middle class Jews from Forest Hills, which is actually more than upper middle class, but, from around the New York City area in the city itself, they may say, yeah, I like a public. You're not going to scare me with a public grocery store, and you're not going to scare me with free buses, and you're not going to scare me with a millionaire's tax. But you might scare me with Globalize the Intifada. So that's why they use it, because they think it could be an effective tool. And maybe they're right. So maybe Mamdani, as Stephanie says, is that this is a way for him to win, right? But I think there's a real risk. I get it. I understand that argument, and I don't reject it completely. Maybe this is the way you bend a little bit, but then bend in a very, very transparent way. The way that Ari alluded to, that is not behind closed doors, not in a way that people don't really know what you did or, what was the context. Not at a meeting where you don't know what promises were made. Don't have closed door meetings with these bad people. That's my first advice to you. And I would have preferred he say, no, I don't think you should have ever met with them. Certainly not behind closed. Yeah, I'll meet with you, but it's going to be in front of, every news outlet in America. It's all going to be on tape. We'll do it in a Zoom meeting so everybody in America can be part of it. That's what you would do. That's what I think you should do. Expose these bastards. So, I don't buy it. What we are facing right now is the existential threat of the greatest inequality the world has ever seen, as well as genocide and ecocide. And the people that he met with, this is the belly of the beast, right? Wall Street, New York business leaders, financial leaders. These are people who are responsible for the very, for the very threats we face that are, beyond the worst this world, the human, not just humans, the worst that the life forms on this earth have faced, at least in 66 million years. And that was a natural disaster, the asteroid hitting us, not human caused. Obviously, there weren't humans. So I have an enormous problem with him meeting with these people behind closed doors. And to give in, I'll discourage others from using it. As is pointed out, it's a rallying cry among opponents of the war in Gaza, but it's not just Gaza. It's the entire zeitgeist. It's against the matrix. And that's why they don't like it. And that's why we should keep using it. All right, 240-242-5646. Yeah, this is really, really, really problematic. Closed door meeting, 150. Why are these 150 business execs, why do they rate to the point where he's going to meet with them at a closed door meeting, which, by the way, he requested? Now, there's an answer. I don't like the answer, but it's an accurate one. They have a lot of power. They've got a ton of money. They're a lot more important when it comes to becoming mayor than just 150 random people you pluck off the street, right? Go to Harlem, you get 5 people. Go to the Bronx, you get 10 more. You go to, the financial services, financial district, and you get 10 there. Midtown, Brooklyn, Queens, and you get 100. Those aren't the people that matter. The people that matter are those CEOs. The CEO of Pfizer was at that meeting. Apparently his grandparents were victims at Auschwitz. And he doesn't like the phrase. Okay, you don't like it. I understand that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about what happened to your family. But this phrase cannot possibly be interpreted to mean that we support genociding the Jews. What we support is ending a genocide being caused by, that is, Jewish created. So look at who's there. A partnership in New York City, a consortium of members representing banks, law firms, and corporations. They're the problem. They're the enemy. Now, I get it. You go and meet with your enemy now and then. But do you go in some... Let's say you're the general of an army and you're up against another army. So you go... There's like 5 other armies. You've got a bigger army than all the 5 other armies together. But those other armies have lots and lots of money. And they pay for mercenaries, and they've got, lots of slogans that they throw around and big signs. And they carry a lot of weight, even though in the end, you've got more people in your army. But you're still afraid of that army. They've got better leadership maybe, and they're very focused, and they can figure out your weak spots. And even though you've got a bigger army, you're not really convinced your army can defeat theirs. So you call a truce and you say, hey, I want to go meet with you. And you say to your big army, you say, yeah, I'm going to go meet with those guys. You just wait here. And I'm going to go meet in their tent with them. And then I'll tell you what was said. And then you come back from that meeting, you say, yeah, we're not going to say globalize the Intifada anymore. Aren't the people who you left behind, isn't your army going to be like, well, what else did he promise them? Yeah, okay, maybe globalize the Intifada is not big a deal, although we like it. It rallies us. When we say globalize the Intifada, we get more people volunteering to be part of our army. But, okay, they don't like it. We don't want to hurt their feelings. Those poor little precious snowflakes over there don't like the term. So we're not going to say it anymore. Do you wonder what else he might be promising them? Like, well, maybe we won't have all those public grocery stores, right? Or we'll have a public-private partnership where we'll help private corporations build those grocery stores. And then they'll operate them. And we'll trust them to do a really good job for all the people. And maybe we really won't raise taxes as high as we thought we might. Right? Aren't you going to think that? And in the end, are you going to wonder what you really got? Like, did all those armies on the other side, the army that represents the fossil fuel companies and the for-profit healthcare companies and the investment bankers, are those armies really going to give us anything at all for what we're giving them? Disarming? Are we going to get anything from them? Well, you sure didn't get from John Haynes or Heinous or Hennis or Heinous. John Heinous, the founder of C Street Advisory Group, says, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he doesn't become mayor of New York City. So you didn't get anything from that, Mamdani. I get it, I guess. I do. I really do, because maybe they're just a few New Yorkers, just enough, especially liberal Jewish New Yorkers who are maybe not 30, but not 60 either, somewhere in between, who are a little nervous about Mamdani, and this will make them a little more comfortable with him, and then he'll vote for them. And maybe that's true. But again, he's paying a very, very heavy price for it. Maybe he wants to pay it. Maybe he's like an AOC, right? That's the problem. That's the worry. And I think it's a very legitimate one. So he's joking with these people. These are the people that steal from you at every opportunity, who hold your healthcare hostage, right? Pfizer Group, CEO is there. That's who they are. He's joking around with them. I'm not happy about that. Are you happy about that? 240-242-5646. I'm not happy about that. Mamdani comes from a pretty privileged background. And I don't think that should matter. I'm like, hey, I care about what you do, about what you say. I don't care about who you are in those terms. But, he comes from a relatively affluent background. His father was, I believe, a professor of some sort, although a radical one. And he said he was privileged. And these are the people he is more comfortable with. They have the same with Obama. They have good manners. He's very handsome. They'd be happy to have him at their cocktail party, their pet leftist, right? As long as he's not threatening them, as long as he's not taking money from them, they're fine with him. And so you gotta wonder what's going on behind those scenes. And it's not just that. It's not just this. It's not just, I'm not going to say globalize the Intifada. He shouldn't give them a friggin' inch. He shouldn't give these bastards a thing. That's my view. Could be wrong. Look, I'm wrong all the time. I thought Deja Fox had a real good shot at beating Adelita Grijalva. She had no chance. So who knows? But he's going to meet with these people again. And I assume it's going to be behind closed doors. And what's the tech sector? What are they going to talk about? I assume he's not going to be pushing free software. I assume he's not going to be pushing some kind of move to Linux, open source software. I assume he's not going to be talking about having the entire city, and I don't think they have this, maybe they do, wireless, right? So everyone gets free internet, because that's what I would love to see. Maybe he'll talk about it. He didn't talk about that during his campaign. So he's going to continue, presumably, closed-door meetings with the very people who are responsible for all the problems we face. That's not good. There's no way to spin that, in my opinion, except, well, he wants to win, and after he wins, he'll turn on them. Well, that's a risk. So here, this is from Bloomberg News. Bloomberg talks Intifada taxes in grilling by business leaders. And I just wanted to show this for one reason. I just highlighted this article because this was not in the New York Times. I assume it's accurate. The New York Times was the main source for the meeting that he had, because remember, it wasn't open. It wasn't public. There was no recordings, no stenographers. But Bloomberg does say the meeting came at Mamdani's request. Why are you meeting with these people? These are the victimizers. And it seems like you're going hand in hand. If you were going to them to say, this is what we need you to do, and with threats, right? If you don't do this, I'm going to do that. That would be fine, right? The opposite, remember, Obama went to those bankers and said, hey, I'm the only thing that stands between you and a communist revolution. And guess what? I'm going to side with you. I'm going to give you bailouts. I'm going to bail you out, not the homeowners. So if Mamdani was going to do a reverse Obama and go to the business leaders and say, yeah, I'm going to be taking more and more away from you guys, and there's really nothing you can do. But what I would advise you to do, if you don't want to lose everything, is start divesting yourselves of, start spinning off your satellite industry, start reducing your trust activity, stop price gouging, because I'm going to go after you regardless. But if you at least are good actors now, maybe you won't face as stiff penalties down the road. That would be fine if he was going to do that. But then why are you behind closed doors? Shouldn't that all be out in the public? This is a very serious warning signal. I get it. People want to support him. I get it. You feel like he's on our side. We don't want to. By the way, thank you, music. Yes, municipal broadband. That is the term. See, I love having the support because I struggle with some of these phrases. I'm in my 60s now. I don't think when I was like 30, I would have had trouble coming up with municipal broadband. I would have, because there was no such thing, but I would have known. If I was 30 today, I wouldn't have had trouble remembering the term municipal broadband. But yes, we do need that. Thank you, music, and I thank you for the good stuff, as well as whatever message you might have retracted. The private meetings, the behind closed doors meetings, which again, Mamdani requested, right? It wasn't like the business leader said, hey, we want to meet with you. We may say some things you'll like to hear, but we don't want it to be public. Okay, maybe you go along with it. I would say that's a risk, but okay. But he requested it. Why? Did he request it because he knew he was going to tell them some things that they want to hear, but he doesn't want his supporters to hear? Kind of like Hillary when she met. She was telling her supporters, yeah, I think we need to regulate Wall Street this, Wall Street that, blah, blah, blah. And then when she goes to Goldman Sachs and she goes to talk to her funders, she tells a very different story. So it's a mixed relationship. The relationship is a little bit tense, is a little bit of, maybe fear when they're not together, when she's speaking to her supporters, her voters, she hopes when she's speaking to voters. But when she speaks to Wall Street, guys, listen, I have a public and a private position. So look, I can't let them know how close we are, my ties to you, how I don't want to talk to my voters about how I stopped the minimum wage hike from 29 cents an hour to 60 cents an hour for 99% of the garment workers in Haiti are black women. I prevented that minimum wage hike from going through. So the profits for Hanes and Levi Strauss have never been greater. But I don't really want to talk about that in front of the voters. So I may say some things you don't really like to hear. But, in the end, I'm against, I'm for the pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline. I'm really for it. Maybe I'll have to equivocate on, quote, free, unquote, trade, but I'm for it. So, yeah, she had a public and a private position. Well, that's what you have to worry about if you're a Mamdani supporter. Does he have a public or a private position? And and I get the argument, by the way, don't forget, if you like what I'm doing here, and again, I don't know who else does shows like this, really. I guess the Do Distance Bros. I'm going to play a clip from Keaton. I think he gets it wrong. I like him. I'm going to pat myself on the back because no one else will. Music has and some others have. So I shouldn't say that. Ken, Dog, Ari, you guys are great. I love you all. You're amazing in terms of the support. But I like Brianna Joy. I really do. But she's too nice. She's like the Mamdani of the podcast world. She's like got that smile. She's sweet. She wants to believe the best in people. And they're not. They're bad. The billionaires are, they may be good to their families. They have some decency in them. They like good art, I'm sure. They have good taste. They're Epicurean. But when it comes to treating their workers with decency, paying their taxes, stopping wars, no, they're bad. And this is the fear that this is who Mamdani is ultimately going to be with. Beyond bending his knee, at least sort of bending his knee on the not jihad, the Intifada. He appoints top DNC and Obama advisor in bid to secure Democratic Party establishment support. Why is he trying to get their support? He should be wearing the opposition of Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, who are wildly unpopular. Voters don't like them. Even Democrats don't like them. Why does he want their endorsement? The fact that they won't endorse him, they don't support him, that's good. That tells me you're a good person. So these are all the warning signals. And then more warning signals. I don't know. This is Fox. Take it with a grain of salt. But this is accurate. Mamdani campaign dishes out millions to key media strategists who helped Obama, right? Again, we saw same event reported, but by World Socialist Web, very critical. They call the Debbie Schomer Media Group the best, and they're so good. Look at how they helped Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman lose. Now, I like Cori Bush. I think she was one of the best. Bowman, very disappointing. But again, these are just Democratic apparatchiks. They're just part and parcel of the whole problem. And that's who Mamdani should be running against, not working with. No, you got it wrong there, my friend. I do want to play Keaton. We're going to go a little over. Don't always do this. We'll go a little over. We'll get to Keaton last thing. Even you see how phony the Dem establishment is. So he makes all this outreach, right? Like he hires Obama advisor. He goes to meet with these billionaires. Kirsten Gillibrand, she can't even bother to issue a public apology. I thought this was so interesting. I saw a clip of, I think it was Nomiki Konst, who has sort of a New York-based progressive figure. I have real issues with her, but she was talking about how people are coming around on Mamdani and Gillibrand is coming around. And I was like, what did she do? Like, what did Gillibrand, when I heard that, I was like, well, did Gillibrand respond? Because remember she had said, yeah, he uses phrases like global jihad and this and that. And Jews are terrified and with good reason. And so it was all BS. She was full of crap. So according to Kantz, yeah, even Kirsten Gillibrand's coming around. So what happened? I found this article. This is in Politico. Gillibrand apologizes over jihad. But what an apology. This is a behind closed door apology. She very publicly on a broadcast attacks Mamdani. She's afraid. The Jews are afraid of him. He's a jihadist or whatever term she used. So she says that very, very publicly. How does she apologize and say, I got it wrong? She doesn't say, go to the New York Times because, the New York Times has those little videos that they do. She doesn't go on YouTube with Hal Ginsberg. She clears the air with a phone call, a private phone call, an unrecorded phone call. This is, again, what kind of an apology? She did that because the last thing she wanted was for people like me to play her apology, in quotes, and either say, yeah, it's an apology, or no, it's not. But the last thing she wants is for there to be real understanding that she got it wrong and she was forced to go to Mamdani with her tail between her legs. Yes, it makes her look bad. It's embarrassing for her. She should be embarrassed. But it's also a problem from her standpoint and from the standpoint of Washington elites, establishment, insiders, if she does that, because it makes Mamdani look really good, right? If she had to say, yeah, I'm sorry. What I said, you didn't say. You're not anti-Semitic, or I certainly don't have reason to believe that. If she said that and he could play that, or his supporters could play it, it wouldn't just make her look bad and make her look bad to her donors. I think she gets millions from AIPAC in the end and the pro-Israel lobbyists. But it would also help Mamdani. So it's a fake apology because she doesn't want to help Mamdani. She just wants to put this behind her. It didn't look good. There were a lot of clips of her lying about Mamdani, and she didn't want to see those out there anymore. So, yeah, look, I apologize. Oh, see, he even says it. They give a readout. There's no recording. It's a bogus crap BS apology is what it is. All right, I want to play one more clip. This is from Keaton Weist, who I often do like. He's on the Revolutionary Blackout Network talking about Mamdani, not about his saying we're not going to say globalize the Intifada. I'm going to discourage others. It's not just that I won't, because he never used it. Fine, don't use it. If you don't want to say globalize, don't. But then don't discourage others, because it's a legitimate, appropriate, and powerful rallying cry. And that's why you should never discourage others from using it, because it's effective. That's why the billionaire elites that you met with don't want you to use it. Here's how Keaton Weist characterizes Mamdani's win in the primary.
mentioned right after he won, you mentioned that this was a big propaganda win, and it's a massive propaganda win. It's a seismic propaganda win, and I think people have to kind of understand that. And one way in which New York and Chicago differ, Kit, is that lots and lots and lots of Jews in New York. New York is the most Jewish city outside of Israel, any place in the world. And pro-Israel politics have dominated New York City as far back as there's been an Israeli state. And so for a guy who says Israel has the right to exist as a state of equal rights, not as a Jewish state, which is what Mamdani has said, to win the New York mayoral primary, that is a pretty massive propaganda win. I don't think that's something that we should dismiss. I think that is very important. And I think it's important to claim that victory, because I think movements, live on victories and die on failure. So I don't think we should run that into the ground. And I think the reason why Mamdani stayed firm on the idea that Israel can only exist as a state of equal rights and not as a Jewish state is because he knew that he was kind of riding the pro-Palestine movement into office. So that's a flex for the movement, that they basically got behind this guy and they kept this guy in line. This guy did not really waver when push came to shove. He tried. He's weasel. Look, he's a DSA guy, right? He tried. Like, when they asked him on TV, they said, so what do you think of Israel? He says, I think it has a right to exist. He wanted to stop there because he wanted to just take the easy way out. But then they pressed him. They say, as a Jewish state. And at that point, he knew, if I say yes as a Jewish state, the pro-Palestine people are going to abandon me and I'm going to lose. So he told the line that the pro-Palestine people wanted. Like, that's kind of what you look for when you're talking about, okay, when you're measuring how much clout you have as a movement. And the fact that he won in New York City, which, like I said, Zionist politics dominate New York City. They dominate New York City. Andrew Yang was going to be the mayor. And then what happened?
All right, I'm going to stop there because he's going to go on about Yang that's not really pertinent. I agree to a point with what Weiss is saying. Yes, the fact that a not Zionist, somebody who clearly made, expressly sympathized with, identified with Palestinians over Israelis, won the New York City primary is a big deal. But no one should really be surprised. This is where we are as Democratic voters. We greatly prefer Palestine to Israel. And this was a Democratic primary. And he was the only arguably pro-Palestine or pro-Palestine candidate. He's the only one who said, I guess one other, he wasn't going to go to Israel. Brad Lander said that also. So, I mean, it's good. It confirms that Democratic voters are not reflexively pro-Israel, even if it's New York City. So that's good. But I don't see how this is a flex if the guy in the end doesn't, govern consistently with the messages that he ran under. If he governs as a standard issue, we've got to protect the poor Jewish population, and that might mean we're going to crack down on pro-Palestine protesters at Columbia. Well, will he do that? He said he doesn't like the term globalize the Intifada now. So if there's a protest at Brooklyn College and some of the protesters are yelling globalize the Intifada, what's he going to do about that? Is he going to do something about it? He said he's not supposed to police language, which I agree with as mayor, but is he now going to police language? So yeah, it's nice to know that the message, a progressive message can win, a pro-Palestine message can win. That's nice. But ultimately, if he bends the knee to the billionaires, if he bends the knee to the Zionists, if he governs kind of the same as everyone else is governed, that is not fighting for poor, struggling, working people, not fighting for an intifada. If he's not going to do that, then it's a huge loss for the movement. Then we put in all this time and energy into somebody who isn't going to fight for us. And then what good is he? It's kind of like AOC. This is where, and I didn't play the clip from it, but Nick, who's the main host on that show, Revolutionary Blackout Network, he said that there's a real fear among the left that Mamdani is going to anesthetize. In other words, we become sort of narcotized. We are like, oh, everything's okay now because we got Mamdani. I remember this organizer saying, when I was at a progressive meeting, we're talking about organizing, and he said, remember after Obama won, and a lot of us were like, yeah, black guy won, we can all go home now. And then he says, and it didn't work out that way. So you could say, okay, Muslim guy won, we can all go home now, except it doesn't look like that. It may not be that we're going to get a Muslim guy who's going to fight the right fights, who's going to fight for poor, struggling, working people, who's going to fight to take on the duopoly. And so his efforts to get endorsements from establishment characters, his accepting a bogus, private apology, his willingness to say globalize, I'm not going to use that term and I'm going to discourage others from using it, globalize the Intifada, his joking around with them. I don't know how you can look at all that and not be concerned. Doesn't mean you don't vote for him. He's still better than the alternative or not as bad. As long as you can believe he'll do good things, that's good. But ultimately, I think this does kind of confirm the wisdom of those of us who say we absolutely need a Green Party. We absolutely need to support Greens. As Kshama Sawant said, the enemy is the billionaire class. You cannot make common cause with them. It is in the end a zero-sum game between the billionaire class and everyone else. And to the extent that Mamdani tries to get their support, tries to get them on his side, he can only do that. These are bean counters on Wall Street. They don't care about rhetoric. They don't care about fine words or flowery language. They care about, what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for my bottom line? And their bottom line consistently, invariably conflicts with what's best for the American people and for the world. Not in every single case, but now in this age of monopolies and duopolies and oligarchies, yes, the interests of the bosses, of the billionaires, conflict almost completely and directly with everyone else's interests. With peace, the environment, justice, economic justice, they're in conflict. So if he goes to meet with them and he tries to placate them and he tries to give them something that they want, he has to sell us out to some degree to get them on his side. That's the only way that will work for him. And that means it will not work for us. Thanks for being part of Halitics.